motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Opposed is nay. Thank you very much. First items on the agenda are ordinances. They say first reading, but these are both deferrals, I believe, so I think we have read them. Councilman Gilbert, the first item is yours. Do you have any questions about this you'd like addressed at this time?
I don't see John.
Brian, are you here? Brian's here.
Hey, Brian, can you go over the conditions for me?
So this is the alternate version?
Yeah, the alternate version.
Okay.
Yes, the alternate version is conditioned to the following conditions: limited to catering business only, retain existing structure on the site, no additional parking, dumpster service limited to the hours of 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., and on-site signage limited to one monument sign no greater than 24 square feet with a maximum height of 4 foot.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
Good, Councilman?
Yeah.
All right, Councilwoman Burrs, I believe at 1:30, you said you had intended to move to table this item as they are still trying to work things out. We don't have a final timeline on that.
Yes, sir.
Correct.
I will be moving to table it. Do I do it here or to?
No, it's 6.
You want it 6?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That moves us to resolutions. 7A, Madam Clerk.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Economic and Community Development to enter into an agreement with Analytical Insight LLC for homelessness planning services in the amount of $49,994.25.
All right, Councilman Ledford, do you want to go ahead and ask your question now? That way they'll be ready at 6 o'clock on this item?
Yes, sir, thank you. I just hit my button. Appreciate you staying ahead of me on that. Tyler's
Donna?
not here.
Donna, Tyler?
Donna-
Who can address a question on
Maybe
this
Maura?
item?
The question is simple. It's just, will Analytic Insight be presenting to us on November 7th, the date we were given? Or it will be coming from them?
I don't know. Hello. I don't know for sure if that is part of the contract for them to make another trip down, but I'll find out for you and let you know before
Can you do
6. Oh yeah,
right,
absolutely.
Yeah, I think we would all appreciate hearing it if it does work into the contract more.
Sure.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, oops, sorry. Councilwoman, I didn't see your line.
Yes, I would like it to be part of the contract, that they present their results on November 7th. I believe that was the date,
I believe so. Yes.
directly to us so that we can ask questions.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Councilwoman. Madam Clerk, B, please.
A resolution authorizing the city treasurer to award a contract for a residential sewer utility protection program to Utility Service Partners Private Label, Inc., a home serve company.
All right, Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can we get a little bit of backstory on this? We were at HomeServe, and we discussed this a little bit when we toured HomeServe, but if you can give us the Cliff Notes version again, that would help.
I'd be happy to.
tremendously.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it's a residential sewer protection line offering that we have agreed to with HomeServe, and they will be offering it to our sewer line customers and providing us a commission on that, off of that. No. Yes,
Did we come up with a timeline yet?
we do. After we sign a contract, it'll be an 8-week implementation. No later than 3 months will they start being able to enroll.
And will the applications go directly to them?
Yes.
Or will the city have a role in that?
No, it'll go directly to them. We will be approving any, pamphlets or anything that goes out to them, but it's sent directly from, and at the cost of HomeServe.
Thank
Yep.
you very much.
Mhm.
C, Madam Clerk.
A resolution approving the issuance by the Industrial Development Board of the City of Chattanooga or Chattanooga Lease Rental Revenue Refunding Bond Series 2018 and authorizing certain amendments to the Conference Center Complex and Parking Garage Lease Agreement and authorizing certain actions relating thereto.
D, please.
A resolution ratifying the renewal by the Human Resource Department of the existing agreement with Cornerstone On Demand for the Learning Management System in the amount of $35,900 for the second renewal term from April 7, 2018 through April 6, 2019, with an option to renew for 2 additional one-year periods for an annual amount of $35,900 each.
E, please.
A resolution authorizing the Director of Human Resources to execute an amendment to the contract with ComSci Corporation to increase the number of assessments and counseling sessions for sworn employees from 8 to 10 per year to comply with TCA Section 850-119 at an increased rate from $1.28 to $1.49 per sworn employee per month beginning July 1, 2018, increasing the approximate annual cost from $33,775 to $36,850.
F, please.
A resolution authorizing the city attorney to enter into a contract with LexisNexis Matthew Bender for online legal research and legal publications updates for a period of 5 years for an amount not to exceed $32,000 per year for a total amount not to exceed $160,000 for the 5-year contract term.
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This might be for Phil. Phil, can you just give me a prime example of when this service is used? Just give me a made-up one.
Daily or hourly, whenever we are trying to at least find case law in accordance with, cases that are pending. I've been working on it today on a Sixth Circuit brief that I have that is pending here involving a police shooting case here. We wanted to make sure we had that information. Anytime we're looking at state law regarding the Tennessee Code or in the United States Code, we look at this device on here. This is a lot better search than just trying to do something through Google. Everything is up to date. A lot of times if you search things that are looking for something on a statute, you'll get something that's in 2010 off of Google. It doesn't help us, so we really need this service. It also is useful whenever we are dealing with taking depositions of individuals. We can actually find what types of things that person may have had in their past as far as criminal events or issues with credit here that might cause them to file an action.
Very good, okay.
Yes, sir.
And I wouldn't rely on Google anyways to be 100% accurate, so good
Okay.
call. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sounds like somebody got lost on Google Maps before. Next item, Madam Clerk.
A resolution authorizing the Chattanooga-Hamilton County Regional Planning Agency to coordinate the development of an airport district master plan.
Airport District. She's gone. We can't have any fun with that one. All right. Next item, Madam Clerk. Oh, wait. These items are Public Works items. I do believe all of these, with the exception of L, were discussed last week. Are there any questions on H through K? All right, Madam Clerk, will you read L, please?
A resolution authorizing the Director of Fleet to enter a claim for 8 Volkswagens to negotiate and settle the claims above the fair market value in the emission settlement process.
Any questions on this item?
Yeah.
Everybody good?
I'll
Oh,
have to.
Councilman Ledford, go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Daisy, is this going to the settlement going to the general fund, I'm assuming? Whatever the settlement amount is. Yes, ma'am.
It will go into the fund from which the car was purchased,
Okay.
most of which come out of a fleet fund, but there may be some that are out of enterprise accounts.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And that is it. The transportation item was last week. That ends all the items on our agenda. If there's no further questions on these items, we will move to a departmental report from the police department. Chief Roddy. I didn't say administration.
That's
I said CPD.
afterwards, not now. Good afternoon, council.
Good afternoon.
Could we drop? Do I point at you? do I have a clicker? There we go. I've set the same format up as the last time that you heard from the police department on how we can just basically outline and explain and at times brag about what your police officers have done in the last quarter. In the first pillar of the police department, the community and problem-solving policing, each one of those have been current and past topics, past programs, and I want to give you updates on each one of those. We held a candlelight vigil for the victims of hate relative to the anniversary of the Pulse nightclub shooting, and managed to speak and represent and reassure members of the LGBTQ community of the fact that your police department is their police department, is all of our police departments, and to just engage and interact and keep those relationships open. And as a result of the conversations that have started from that night, we now have an actual representative on our restart committee within the police department from the LGBTQ community. Ms. Samantha Butcher. She has agreed to sit on that committee within the police department, and that committee reviews recruiting, education, training, selection, and policy considerations within the department and to give insights and advice. So she is now part of that committee, and that came, in my opinion, as a direct result of the relationships that we've established by making sure we keep those lines of communications open. We held another Tip a Cop event. This is the partnership between the police department and the Special Olympics, where officers go to a local restaurant, assist the servers, and as a result of that, a certain percentage of the proceeds go towards Special Olympics. We held this last one at Chewy's, and it's exactly what the pictures are representative of. We spent the day with not only some of the athletes, Special Olympics staff, but many members of our community that came specifically to eat at Chewy's, enjoy great food. Hopefully, police officers didn't mess up their orders. Really all we did was just fill drinks, non-alcoholic ones. And no, hopefully non-alcoholic. You tried to order a margarita, and we didn't give it to you. I'll put that on the next slide, sir. So again, it was a great way to engage. We all had a great time that day. The book donation with the Junior League, as a result, they collected almost 2,000 books, which we took receipt from them down off of Glass Street, placed it into the community library that's built down there, and then distributed it out to not only some more of the small libraries, but also officers keep these books in their cars. And as they see kids in our community, they hand them out. We hand out trinkets and balls and keychains and everything that we can think of to engage with the youth in our community, but what better way than to give them a book and just to support literacy and increase literacy in our communities. We brought back the partnership that we established at the end of last baseball season to the beginning of this one with the Lookouts, where they have agreed to give us tickets to certain games throughout the season, and police officers go to the game with kids from our YFD centers, and actually managed to talk the Lookout staff down on the field to where one young man was able to make the opening pitch during that game. You notice on the left-hand picture, he was able to go out on the mound. That was a pretty good smile from that kid as he was able to get through throwing the ball, and he actually put it across home plate. I was worried they were going to ask me to do it. I would have immediately said I had a cramp, and I wouldn't have done it because the kid would have showed me up. So we had about 20 participants that day. Louis interacted with the players on the field, sat and watched them up in the stands, and as a result of that partnership also, the Lookouts gave them bats. They gave them a $10 credit so they can go to the concession stand. So we took a lot of kids back home that night full of nachos and popcorn and everything else. But it was a really good evening with kids from YFD. We presented the recent section of the community immersion program at the camp house with 14 cadets from our last graduating academy, representing the African American, Islamic, Muslim, intellectually developmentally disabled, and mental health communities. Again, very well received from members of the community and the participants in that. And we have 14 more cadets that are in FTO right now, with a much deeper and greater understanding of the community that they have taken an oath to protect and serve. And then we did a shop with the cop with the International Brotherhood of Police Officers employee group. We met about 60 kids at the Walmart on Signal Mountain Road for a back-to-school shop with the cop. They're not nearly as excited about that one as they are the one we do at Christmas, because this is back to school. But it's still a good day. We took some kids around in the Walmart that morning. They managed to get the book bags they wanted, the markers that they wanted, and the actual pen and paper that they did not want, because that means homework. But IBPO raised about $9,000 for that event as well. And then another installment of Coffee with a Cop. This one we held at the Spot down on Main Street. This is the partnership that we have with AARP, and just casual conversation within the community establishment over coffee, and unfortunately, donuts were again brought in this year, no matter how many times I ask them not to do that, to discuss safety concerns, anything that's of topic of interest to the individuals that participate. It was a really good day. Our next one is set for Goodman's Coffee on October 13th at Warehouse Row, and that is going to be a coffee with a cop in conjunction with the fire department. Chief Hyman is going to bring some of his firefighters down to that event, and we're going to talk about fire safety, possibly hand out some smoke detectors, and then make sure they understand that cops are still cooler. But anyway, it's debatable, but we're expanding this thing out just to have some more safety briefings for the individuals that attend that event with us. In the second pillar, intelligence-led policing. These are your statistics to date. If you'll notice, criminal homicides compared year to date from 17 to 18, we are down 59% on homicides. And your gang or group member involved shootings are down 53%. Your criminal non-fatal shootings are down 9%, and group member or gang member involved non-fatal shootings are down 35%. So that 9% on the criminal non-fatals was actually much better. We did have a bad couple of weeks here recently. We've had some shootings that I'm sure council is aware of. So we're working to take deliberate efforts again to get those numbers headed back in the direction that we hope for. But everything that we focused on relative to homicides and specifically group or gang member involved violent acts are still down significantly from 18 compared to 17. Our homicide clearance rate, as we discussed last time, is still holding steady with a national average of 60%. Year to date, we are at 85% on our homicide clearance rates. And as we discussed last time I was in front of council, many agencies, law enforcement professionals consider this to be a very indicative number of what trust the community has in its police department. Homicides are sometimes brought through physical evidence, the prosecution, the investigation, whether it's a video or a print or DNA or an identification of a suspect or possible suspects. But it truly involves and relies upon a community trusting its police department and just talking with us, explaining to us what happened, who endured what, who suffered what, who was there, who wasn't there, to help us understand what occurred in our community. And again, showing an 85% clearance rate of our homicides, I believe is still indicative of the level of trust that this community has with its police department, especially its police department's investment in helping a community heal from one of the most egregious acts that it can suffer, which is the death of one of its community members. Public safety cameras. With this passing budget, we're set to install 14 new public safety cameras to be installed. You will have 5 cameras going into the Adams sector, which is Hickson, North Chattanooga, downtown through Alton Park, St. Elmo. You'll have 5 cameras going into Baker sector, which is East Chattanooga, Highland Park, East Lake to the state line, and 4 cameras going into Charlie sector, which is Eastdale, Midtown, East Brainerd, out to the end of jurisdiction there. The same criteria was used to select all 14 of those locations as we did the previous 15, which was direct solicitation from community input. What fears are there, and how can these cameras help alleviate some of that? Our direct officer intelligence that we gather through reports, as well as direct investigations, and then our crime analysis data to show us what we are seeing through reports of where certain types of crimes are occurring. All of those are put together to determine the best 14 locations to install those cameras coming up. We also have put a full-time investigator in the Real-Time Intelligence Center, which is allowing that intelligence product that we have been mentioning to you that has been done, parted out in different parts of the department, whether it's through investigators or the analysts or the data analysts themselves. This now has a full-time investigator that is staffed in there to do just that. So that is going to be the reception point of everything from the videos to intelligence reports to criminal investigation networking to produce these intelligence reports, which is the final end game of what we're trying to do with the Arctic, is to increase that staffing out even more. And then Shop Till You Drop. This is an intel sharing between CPD, property crimes, fraud, U.S. Secret Service, and local retail loss prevention. It's just to exchange information relative to whether it's a trend or something someone's experiencing, or whether there's any commonalities between suspects or types of crimes. This was created by Sergeant Becky Kreitz in our property division in October 2017, and we've seen tremendous interaction between local retailers as well as law enforcement in these meetings. As a result of this, Investigator Charles Petty, who is part of our fraud unit, I was actually approached by the special agent in charge of our U.S. Secret Service office here, and he asked if we would be interested in having Investigator Petty be sworn in as a task force officer with the U.S. Secret Service office. We agreed to it immediately. He was directly solicited by name by their investigators because of the level of trust and support that they have for him, and just his professionalism and his abilities. And to my knowledge, he's the first CPD officer that's ever worked as a task force officer in the U.S. Secret Service office here in Chattanooga. So when we talk about those federal partnerships that create closure to the greatest degree in investigations, the TFO positions are some of the most critical to that, and having our ability to put another TFO in another federal office helps us pull that lever when needed. And then finally, third pillar is focused deterrence. These are some of the notable arrests that we've been able to make through the fully staffing of the gun team, which was brought about in the current budget. With the arrest of, and I'll let you read them, so I'm not just going to bore the council with reading off the slide, but we had several notable arrests, including attempted murders and aggravated assault shooting into occupied dwellings, shell casing comparisons, as well as some of these comparisons that have led to assisting other agencies in the area that are NIBIN-connected law enforcement agencies as well, particularly Huntsville on one of those. So with the full staffing of that NIBIN team and the gun team, we're seeing more and more of these develop as we go through. In fact, I believe we had 2 arrests notable this week on some other NIBIN-related trace networking and link analysis that led to those charges as well. So the success of the NIBIN is increasing even more. As a result of that, Chattanooga is basically one of the leading agencies in the country on what we do with what's called Crime Gun Initiative and Crime Gun Evidence. As a result of that, we have been asked to participate in what's called the Crime Gun Initiative Governing Committee, which was organized by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms to be one of the agencies that is building a best practices guidebook for other agencies across the country. We have participated in that, built the guide, and that will be presented at the International Association Chiefs of Police Major Chiefs Conference in October to go out to all police departments across the country in conjunction with the ATF's release of what we're seeing is effective on addressing crime gun incidents within a community. That's what they produce. That's a link analysis to each gun. So when we're able to find these shell casings on whether it's a shots fired call or an aggravated assault scene or a homicide scene or however it is we collect it, it drops into this system, and this system then correlates it back to incidents where that firearms evidence was located as well. So this is where we're able to show, whereas we presented in focused deterrence that is a small number of individuals that creates a disproportionate level of violence in our community, it is also a finite number of firearms that are used to commit violence in this community. So as you start to tie finite individuals associated with violence to finite items that are associated with the violence as well, it makes our investigations move much quicker and with much better results. These are some of the work that your narcotics and vice units have done since May. We've seized 128 pounds of marijuana, responded to 82 overdoses, with 16 of those resulting in a fatality. These are typically going to be your opioid overdoses, which we're all aware of what that's doing across our community and across the country. In conjunction with that, we've worked to establish close ties with the local drug enforcement agency office, where they have worked to take over lead in some of the investigations on those fatalities, so we can work on addressing what the source of those opioids are that are coming into this community, resulting in these deaths. We've seized 24 guns since May just through our narcotics unit. These are mostly stolen guns, as well as continued our partnerships with DEA, ATF, and FBI, including an FBI overtime grant that is going to focus specifically on place-based investigations on some of the most violent locations that we've identified through data within the city. And once we get some more of those informations nailed down, we'll share that with council on what we're looking at on the focus efforts of officers that are going to work in conjunction with the FBI on that. And then tying it all together. This is the app. Submits tips regarding what they believe to be a drug house in their neighborhood. CPL Intel forwards that information to our organized crime unit. They then follow that information out to what areas of the department could possibly address it, whether that's neighborhood policing or patrol, street crimes, narcotics, works together to figure out the best way to deal with what that tip is, that concern, that fear that's expressed from a community member through our application. Narcotics gathers enough credible information and evidence that leads to the arrest. So this is how we tie in community engagement and involvement, our intelligence and technology pillar, and then using focused deterrence partnerships that we are working hopefully to result into a safer neighborhood. And that would be the end.
Thanks, Chief. Got a few questions. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chief, will you remind me of the percentage, you talked about that percentage before, the most violent? I think it was either 0.7 or 0.07?
0.04.
0.04.
That was the study when we initially entered a partnership with a national network of safe communities through John Jay out of New York. This would have been in 2015. We analyzed the shootings and homicides that our city had suffered over the previous 3 years. And in analyzing all of those through suspectology and victimology, it was determined that from those cases alone, what we were able to work backwards to determine was that 0.04% of the population of Chattanooga is connected to as much as 70% of its violent acts through aggravated assaults and homicides.
And through NIBIN, we're able, oh, the slideshow went away. Did you kill it? The slideshow?
It's like Mission Impossible. It
it
destroys
disappears.
itself after.
Yeah. Two things.
What are you laughing at?
So by, the NIBIN is really helping us narrow down the locales that, so we're able to kind of connect the dot, basically, is what I'm seeing.
It adds more dots, is what it does. And what we're seeing, especially with the NIBIN, is the repeated use of the same firearms relative to incidents. But also, it helps us pay attention to what we consider, or have been considered in law enforcement, as near misses. And I say that a little tongue-in-cheek. Our officers, the way we respond to shots fired in Chattanooga is atypical from the rest of the country, and it's atypical from what has often been done in my career. Shots fired calls, you were dispatched, you drove into the area, obviously it's over, and if no building was hit, no victim was hit, nobody's making a statement about a crime, then we simply got back in service. Your officers now go the extra step. On shots fired calls, we are required to make a report that is entered into our records management system, and then officers canvass the neighborhood to see if anyone heard it, knows anything about it, saw anything, and then people get out and walk around, shine lights if it's dark, look underneath cars if they're on the roadway to determine if there's any firearms evidence present. All of that is put into NIBIN to where that's an act of violence. Somebody pulled and shot a gun,
Right.
which endangered individuals.
Right.
So by increasing that network of what we're seeing of attempted acts of violence, it helps us tie together whether it is a trend we're seeing relative to a certain gang set or a certain part of the city, or if it ties together through NIBIN, through that guns being tied over to multiple events like that.
Great, thanks. Can you run that slideshow back to a tip of cop, will you, real quick? I think I saw something that looked
Other way.
familiar.
The Tippecop,
Yep. Something that caught my eye.
there, whoop, there, quit it. There we go.
Keep going.
No, keep going,
He wants the photo.
keep going.
Yeah, that vanished too.
Is it shop with a cop, tip
No,
with a
tip-
tip a cop, coffee with a cop? There's a lot of stuff with
Tip.
cops.
See, those are stuff.
You want me to start at the beginning?
Going right there.
Ah,
All right.
I thought that looked familiar. That would be from the youngest member of my family,
Outstanding.
completely unprovoked. I didn't know he had done that.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Gilbert.
Going back to cameras, how are we with the youth and family development? Y'all able to see everything you can see on the new cameras?
We have not tied into the YFD Center cameras yet. I believe City IT is working to make those moves over, but I don't know that we have tied those into the Real-Time Intelligence Center yet.
Will we get a date and time on when we're gonna have that done?
Certainly. We will.
We don't yet have a time on that. We're working on the YFD centers right now. So as soon as we're moving along with those, we'll have a better idea of when those will be.
So it'll be in this year or next year? Or
It will be this year.
It will be this year? All right, thanks.
May I expand on that, Councilman? We're also working to move to where we're able to tie in third-party camera systems, hopefully in the future as well. So it may even be non-governmental cameras. It could be privately owned within a business, within a corporation or whatever. So those can tie into the Arctic as well. So we finally have that video management platform within the Arctic settled, so we can start those tie-ins. So you should see those conversations starting soon.
That'll probably be this year too?
Yes, sir.
All right, thanks.
Councilwoman Burrs.
Chief, this was terrific. My colleagues kid me about always asking for a cost-benefit analysis. And when I look at the budget and when I look at the benefit, this was a business-like presentation. You didn't do it, right? Who put it together?
Now that just hurts.
I know it does, but
And
I
I'll
know
tell
you.
Elisa you said kind things about
Yeah,
it, but yeah,
whoever
that
put
hurt.
it together, they did a great job. The bottom line is, this is the kind of reports we need. And it happened in 2 years. And that's what we need to emphasize. We didn't talk about it forever. We identified problems. And in 2 years, we're seeing an impact. And the money we've spent has been well worth it. So thank you very, very much for this presentation. And thank you for dividing it out the way you have for the various areas of service. I'm really proud of the work you've done. You've done a terrific job, and I can see the difference. I know snags happen along the line. You know, it's noise on the line. What's really important is that you've made progress in some really difficult times. So thank you. I just wanted to know on record that I've thanked you for that, and you've done it in something that I always hunger for, and that's business-like passion. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
All right, I see no further lights. Chief, as always, thank you very much.
Thank you, Council.
That is-
Now,
That is the last item on our agenda. Is there anything further for the agenda session? All right, seeing none, we're adjourned till 6.
I got a question. Because you agreed to